Hey everybody, it's me, Root Beer, and I'm here with a product opening. We have this definitely brand new Luard deck set that I totally did not open at my locals because I forgot to bring a playmat with me. But yeah, as always, I have my emotional support Nijika. I've been trying to get one of these for ages, like every time I go to Kinokuniya, which is like maybe once a month, just to like hang out at Japantown in San Francisco. I will like buy the Bochi keychains that they have there because I've been like working up my collection. So I have a bunch of Bochi stuff that's on my like gym bag that I bring with me everywhere. And I've had the emotional support Kita that I've been putting into a bunch of videos, this one. And, finally I got a Nijika because she was my favorite. And I have this Fubuki pin that I bought ages ago, and I forgot which event I did it at. But yeah. So, Luard Stride Deckset. Definitely brand new. So, I got the premium version this time because I hate money. No, I don't know, I wanted it. I guess there's a part of me that's, like, curious, that's just content brained, so, when I did the Messiah set opening, I just got the regular one, because I kind of liked Messiah. Messiah has always been a deck that, like, conceptually I wanted to like, but playing it, it's never worked out for me. I think I built it during, like, GBT 8. Okay, so I had to pause the recording to go on a side quest. Okay, so I had to pause the recording to go on a side quest for Butt Cream. I will not be elaborating, but as I was saying, I tried to build Messiah during GBTO 8 because it was like being featured in the anime, and so I thought Flagiolet Messiah was cool because it could like potentially Omega lock your opponent, and then I was also amused by Ibuki fucking dying against Demiurge, and so I wanted to play the deck to like honor his sacrifice, and it just never really agreed with me. Like, I feel like I technically played it correctly, but like I would just brick or have otherwise really bad luck with it. And so eventually I just like sold it to Atlas, I'm pretty sure. And so I bought the standard Messiah Stride set just as like a, okay, let's give it another try. And I never played it outside of like opening it for the video. So, yeah. But honestly, I do like doing stuff like this. I like being just generally informed about what these products look like, just so I can try to have a more informed discussion about them for videos and the podcast. So, we're going to talk about the Luard Stride set now. So I bought the premium version this time, like I said. Luard is another deck that, like, I've always wanted to, like and try out and just never really had the opportunity. Like, I played it when it first came out in G because it was a trial deck, and then slowly but surely the deck just got really expensive. It was always kind of expensive. Like, Drag Driver was always a really expensive card despite how bad it is, relatively speaking. And then, you had to have like Aura Geysers in the early days when you had nothing else, and even after the reprints, those were still like decently expensive. And then later on, once you got like Ogma and Belial Owl and like Ezras, the deck really got like out of control price wise. So I was like never really able to play Luard. And then, I functionally quit the game during V. I was mostly just stuck around for the podcast during that time. I didn't play the game. So, giving it another try, especially because I think the upcoming meta is going to be largely dominated by the Stride decks. And, I figure as like a bit of bonus content, we might just do like an impromptu deck list as well. So, first up comes in this nice big fancy box, which could be good for just holding all of my other various decks, because I have so many other deck boxes around. Right now I'm using like a special edition Blaze Blue box that I had from forever ago. I'm not going to get it right now because it's in my drawer buried underneath a bunch of my commons. But so we have the deck itself. It's all shiny and pretty because this is the premium version. We have sleeves, which I can't remember if these are new. Like, I don't remember if all of the old Stride decks came with sleeves. Let's find out. If my mouse will wake up. Yes, we're gonna go Google it live. Products. So let's go all the way back to the Messiah and the Chronojet ones. There's the premium version. So so yeah, I think the Chronojet one never came with sleeves, and then it seems like neither did the Messiah one, so definitely an upgrade in that regard. Although, I think those came with like special acrylic coins that had like the plus 5k and everything on them. I don't believe this one has it though. So they kind of traded out the coins for sleeves, which, I don't know. Like, I think the coins are useful, like those little markers and stuff. It's just like a nice thing to have when you're buying a product like this. Makes me wonder what the standard version of the Luard Stride set has, actually. Let's take a look at that, too. So, still comes with the sleeve, still comes with the storage box. It just doesn't come with, like, the playmat, the box, and, of course, everything being triple R foiled, being all nice and shiny. So, yeah, we have the deck, we have sleeves, we have the special acrylic holders, which I'm most likely just going to use for, like, the ride line. We have this nice fancy box here. Let's get rid of all that garbage. Have a nice fancy box here. It's all nice. And it's one of the nicer ones. I believe the original Chronojet one was just like a plastic box that you get with like all of the other decks and stuff, so. I never bought the Chronojet Strides box, but I believe it had just one of the plastic boxes like this one. So, starting from the Messiah one, you know, they started having, like, these fancier boxes. Acrylic holders. And, of course, the playmat that I definitely didn't open at my locals earlier. Very pretty. Nice. And then, yeah, you have this large storage box that you can kind of fit a deck box in. I don't think it goes in vertically, but you can put them in like this. So, bit of extra space for all of my deck boxes. That's always nice to have. Oh no. And I dropped everything on the ground while I was trying to make space for the playmat. Oh no. Yeah. You know, let's open this up and see what's in the box, and maybe we'll do a little impromptu deck profile, because unfortunately, because of the deck size update allowing you to play 54 cards now, these are no longer complete out of the box. Like, it's not a legal deck. So we can go over like the kinds of modifications we can make and maybe explore some other potential options. But, you know, out of the box, we have 4 copies of Luard with the alternate art. He's all pretty and shiny. We have 1 Leofail, 1 Neves, and of course the Grade 0 Root. Let's move this over here. There's a part of me that wants to like track down like an old hot stamped copy of Luard, or maybe like the alt art from G era. That is one of the nice things about these. We were kind of talking about it on the podcast, but I will say that like for existing players, because this is largely nostalgia bait, the ability to use like your old versions of the card is very nice. So people who invested in like SPs and the like feel like they had their investment rewarded. So we have Solemn Clout Dragon, so this is kind of the like plus 10k extra grade 3. So like Ritual 3 gets 10k, and then they all kind of have the same standard cost. When they're discarded for Stride, you can draw a card. Morfessa, you know, This one I feel like kind of highlights some of the design problems that I've had with the premium deck set. We kind of discussed it a bit on the podcast, but I feel like we never went in depth enough with it, where like when it attacks a Vanguard, if you have the Luard crest specifically, not just a Luard Vanguard, so already there's kind of this issue of like not really translating to premium, where, you know, you have to like have the crest, which feels redundant because the only reason you would bother to play Luard is like if you're striding and doing the crest stuff. It's not like you would be playing it for any other reason, and it's not like this is going to be generic if it just worked for Luard, right? Like, you're never going to play Luard without the crest because you can't stride without it, and you're not going to play this generically because it's tied to Luard. So I feel like tying it to the crest specifically feels like Bushiroad deliberately going out of their way to be like, no, you can't play this in premium unless you just really want to spend the extra money on more grade 1s to make your deck kind of inconsistent to have the crest. And then, of course, and then the extra addition of being like functionally GB3, where you have to have 2 face-up cards in your G zone. It's like, no, no, no. You know, the extra attack is too much. You know, we can't give Luard 5 attacks until like late game, which just kind of hampers its use in premium, right? Which is really unfortunate because like the old Morfessa like had very specific requirements that made it like hard to get the extra attacks with Luard, and Luard has kind of fallen off in premium, so I wish this was like a better option for that format. I think when these were first released, when we had the Chronojet one, we were kind of talking like, oh, you know, this could be a decent pipeline into premium, and I still kind of believe that that's the case for the Chronojet one specifically. I think most of the things it does is still somewhat applicable to premium, not at a super high level, obviously, but, you know, Fate Rider is not terrible. You know, Next Stage is not terrible. The old, you know, Chronojet skill is still kind of okay, especially now with the History Collection updates. Like, you could do something with that, with the extra stride. So, I don't know. I just feel like they could make these a little more applicable into premium. You know, I think Messiah and Chronojet kind of could do it, even if they're not the best decks ever, but these cards seem like they were designed in such a way that they wouldn't work very well in premium anymore. Like, Morfessa needing the crest and also just being generally kind of slow before being allowed to give an extra attack just kind of kills its viability in the format. I think you would really only play it if you were trying to go for like some sort of extreme high roll play, which just kind of lame, you know? Next up, we have Ezros. So, PG has kind of the standard DPG skill, where if you have 1 or less cards in your hand, it's free. 4 Cup, and then we have Abyssal Owl. So, Abyssal Owl is both like... it's a searcher, actually, for Luard, because Luard doesn't really need stride fodders. It already has the free stride ability, but Drag Strider does require you discarding a copy of Luard, so this having the ability to kind of search out a Luard from your deck is very useful, and then it also just, like, makes you discard a card, which you can use to fuel Ritual. But, of course, it also has the more iconic version of its ability. Abyssal Owl has always been a resource unit for Luard, so it allows you to, at the end of your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Luard, you can bind 2 cards with the same name as this card from your drop zone to countercharge 1. It does kind of take away from your ritual count, but it is a form of countercharging, even if it is a bit clunky compared to other versions of Abyssal Owl. You know, still captures the same spirit. That is always something I've liked about encounter cards in Standard, is they did a much better job of capturing the spirit of the original cards compared to, like, the V versions, although I will say, like, V Luard does skew pretty close to the way Luard has been in Premium. Next, we have Drag Wizard Semius. So, this is like a 10k booster. It gets 2k if you're in Ritual 3 and you have the Luard crest, which, again, kind of annoying that they tied everything to the crest. I wish this was usable in Premium. But also, it has an ability when it's placed on rearguard circle, other than during the battle phase. If you have a Vanguard with Luard in its card name, You can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose a card from among them, call it to rear, put the rest on bottom of the deck in any order, and if you called a card at the end of the return, retire the unit that you called. So, obviously, it's Shadow Paladin. Self-retire is a big thing. So, this is just a really nice way to get you resources. Where you call it, it just calls another thing for free. So you have retire fodder, and then, dying during the end phase is just kind of natural. It's probably going to die anyways. Next up, we have Preservation Angel. So it gets Intercept and 5k shield for Ritual 3, which I believe this card kind of gets cut out from decks really quickly. Like, let me double check. I feel like maybe I'm getting the arts mixed up. But I think this one kind of gets cut out from decks. Actually, no. I think topping decks have been playing it just for the extra shield value. Let's see. Yeah, no, actually, I thought this would be... I think I was looking at this card to cut, but it seems like people are actually playing it just because, like, the extra shield value, but also having the ability to intercept is kind of useful just because you're probably going to end up with a lot of front row grade 1s, just the way this deck works out. So next up we have Luminosity Wizard. So it is a Ritual 3, and when it's placed on rear, it gets plus 10,000, which makes it an 18k booster. And then if you have the Luard Crest, you can Soul Charge 1, and when it's retired and you have the Luard Crest, then you may Soul Charge 1, choose one of your Vanguards that gets 5k. So this is the one that everyone seems to be cutting from their deck list, which, I don't know. I feel like this deck could use some beaters, right? Like, I understand that with the Crest, eventually you will get there, but since your main win condition is just a big asshole with a guard restrict, I feel like having an 18k booster is nice. It's kind of strange to me that everyone has opted to cut it out of the deck list. I suppose it is pretty slow. It doesn't really contribute a whole lot to the deck. Considering that we have the 4 extra slots, but also we don't have Celagon to really replace it with, or to replace this with right now, I might be keeping it in my deck list, at least like 1 or 2 copies, just to see like if the extra power will help out in any way. But we'll see. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with the deck list yet, so that's kind of the main deck. And then for the trigger lineup, you have, of course, the Over Trigger. This is the Keter one, which, honestly, like, this one has kind of gone extinct recently. I feel like no one really plays it anymore, because, like, in terms of the top decks, Bastion, like, you already give drive checks to your rear guard, so you don't really need it. And then, also, because you're constantly discarding Bastions for that ability, the ability to, like, get one of them back to either, like, Persona Ride or fuel an additional turn later, it's just more useful to have the blue one, so definitely I'm probably just going to cut that for a different OT. And most likely it's going to be the blue one, although I think the red one is justifiable. Like, having an extra restand is always nice. And then, of course, we have triggers. So 4 draw, or 4 crit, 3 draw, 4 fronts, 4 heals. And then finally, the big thing, we have our Stride decks. So since I bought the premium one, I do have, like, SP, in quote, versions of both the Strides, and they're all very pretty. I think it's clean. I really like this art for Drag Strider. The art for Drag Driver, I appreciate that they're going for a different angle. Man, what's wrong with your face? But yeah, pretty shiny. And then, of course, we do have a few extras. So they gave you extra copies of Leofail, which I don't think you need. Funny enough, they gave you 2 copies of the crest. They give you a regular one, and then this one has, like, the gold foiling on the text, too. So probably gonna play, like, the pretty shiny one, because it's the pretty shiny one. Definitely, you don't need those extra copies of Leofail. For the trigger lineup, most likely, gonna replace the crit with, like, the effect crits, obviously, but also just different arts, because I like different arts. Probably gonna play, like, front triggers instead. Let's see what other people are doing right now. Other people are playing draw triggers, which, I feel like this deck doesn't actually draw as much as you would, like, assume that it does, Just like the way it plays requires heavy commitment to your board. You need like fodder to retire and all that. So, you know, I've considered putting front triggers in the deck, but most likely probably just have like the effect draws. I'm probably going to experiment with both. You know, we have a long time with the new format, so I'm probably going to take at least some time to play with Luard for a while because it's going to be relevant for several months, at least up until like July. Maybe like DZ1 has like kind of shaken things up a little bit with Vargas, but like the Stride decks are still topping, right? So we might have to look at like DZ2 and beyond before these really get phased out. So, you know, definitely replacing the triggers, which I ought to go get my deck box. I'm gonna pause the recording real quickly to do that. Alrighty, so I'm gonna replace the default trigger lineup with just the ones I'm already playing in my other Keter decks. So I have the effect draws here. I also have the effect fronts lying around somewhere, but, you know. So I have the effect crits, of course. Don't think you, like, really ever need to use the ability, but it's something you could potentially do. This is always one of those, like, you don't need it, but it also doesn't hurt. This particular art, cause waifu. And then one extra art because I like being different. So yeah, running 8... Oh, I'm only running 7 crits. No, I'm running 8 crits. Why do I have 4 draws? What? I'm just running illegal deck lists out here. What is wrong with me? And then I have 4 different heal arts because, of course I do. I'm me. I like being different just to annoy people. And then I don't actually know where my blue OT is right now. It might be in my Leonorn deck, because I think last time I sleeved those up, it was in, like, Stoicheia. So right now I have the red OT as a placeholder. Maybe pretend it's a blue one. We're now in kind of the impromptu, like, deck profile section of this video, by the way. So, you know, revised trigger lineup, which is, you know, 8 crit, 3 draw. We're, of course, using the effect versions of all of them. 4 heals. 4 different heal arts. I'm putting the red OT as a placeholder, though I think it's a perfectly, like, valid decision. The blue one kind of has the advantage of just being a 9th critical trigger, which is very helpful for a deck that has a big asshole with a guard restrict, where that's your win condition. We can get rid of this now. And then, as far as replacement cards... I think the default deck list has 3 of these, and there was an extra one on the bottom of the deck. I'm not entirely sure that I want to cut this just yet. All it really does is be a 23k beater, but because Dragheart doesn't give any power early, you know, your first crest, or your first stride, the crest is only going to be giving 5k when you flip something up, so I kind of like having this to search off of Drag Driver, just because it's a grade 3, or it's a 23k beater, and then you're not getting too much power early, so just hitting 28k is, like, nice. And then, also for, like, late game, if you can't fulfill all of the conditions for Drag Strider and you're forced into Driver, just, like, having this guy and having him be huge is kind of nice. It's also, like, additional stride fodder, you know? That first stride, especially, you're gonna have to, like, stride normally, because Ritual 3 only works at the start of the ride phase, so you're gonna, like, ride up to this, and then you've already missed the window to get the free stride. So having a couple of extra stride fodder doesn't hurt, and, you know, just a big beater. Okay. So, ignoring the ride deck, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We're gonna replace this with the Sanctitude. This is 13, 17, 21, 25, 29. So, first things first, we're going to bring the count up to 30. Wait, no. 3, 5, 7, 11, 15, 19, 23, 27. Okay, so right away we're doing this. Sorry, I'm like doing this live, so my brain is not entirely like here for this. Obviously we're gonna replace one of these with a Sanctitude. Oh right, that's what's throwing me off. Is normally I don't count PGs in this, so I'm looking to have 30 cards total for the main deck, right? Because you have like your kind of mandatory cards, which is like the 16 triggers and the 4 PGs that everyone pretty much always plays by default. So then you have like 30 main deck slots. So if we replace these 4, then right now we have 3 additional slots, right? 5, so this is 5, 9, 13, 17, 21, 25, 29. So right away, I think we want to put a copy of, at least one copy of Maple, probably 2. So this is already taking me over my like 30, but I'm trying to think about, how and what I'm going to replace. So because there's no Celagon in the format, we kind of have 4 extra slots compared to a lot of the JP deck lists. And then we like having Maple here because of the way that the Luard the interactions kind of work. So, Maple's ability triggers when your Vanguard is placed. So that includes like when you stride. So what'll happen is let's say you have 2 of them in the drop zone. You'll stride, and then both Maples will go on standby, as well as Luard's stride skill. So what you can do is you can call a Maple, then you can use Luard's stride skill to retire the Maple, and then you still have a second one that's on standby, and because you retired the first one, the additional condition of like not having a Maple in its card name, like you now fulfill the condition of like not having a Maple card in its card name, so you can like or you can call it again and kind of have that front row unit to just kind of be there, right? Okay, so for sure we're keeping 4 of these. When I was testing my list, I kind of cut out the Preservation Angels and kept the Luminosity Wizards. I'm not sure that that's correct, just looking at other people's deck lists, and like the need for shield value is something that is pretty important that I didn't consider when I was making my lists. But there's also a part of me that like wants to continue experimenting with Luminosity Wizard to see if that extra power makes a difference. And so I think to make room for Maple, I'm going to cut out 1 copy of Preservation Angel first. And then looking at like other options, I've also thought about playing some of the like generic Keter stuff. So we can do Tolpaz, maybe like 1 copy of Tolpaz, just because you're probably never going to re-ride Luard, right? Like you're always going to just be like discarding these for either stride fodder or just for Drag Strider's ability. And then like you might need to keep knees in your drop zone just to keep your ritual count. Leofail, you don't really like, I don't think you really like bother calling it out with its own ability, right? Like Maple kind of does a better job of that. So most likely you can get rid of like Leofail and Root for like one of these. So like I'm kind of considering maybe we'll replace another Luminosity Wizard with like one of these. And then Dire Ruining is a funny one because I remember when this deck was first unveiled, this card got hyped up immensely because everyone was like, ooh, we can use it to recycle PGs, so it'll be like having OG Ezras. And then I think, like, as we kind of went on and it became very obvious that Shiranui was the best deck in the format, the need to outpace Shiranui has made it so that Dire Ruining is just not really there. Like, it's a bit slow to be able to recycle the PGs, right? Like, you have to be able to, like, get the PG in there in the first place. Then you still have to, like, pay the cost of discarding a card. And so I think just the need for more card advantage and the need to just be faster and more aggressive has made it so that Dire Ruining just doesn't have a place in the deck. So that's kind of out. I've also thought about running, like, the Dragon Tree Wretch. Not a great card, admittedly. Like, it's a way for you to draw more cards, but also, I don't think the deck truly needs that. You know, the problem with this one is it needs to, like, stay on the board, and then you have to, like, call something in the same column. It's not great. But, you know, there is a part of me that wants to, like, experiment with these random tech cards. That's the nice thing about the format being so long, is that, you know, you have time to try different things. I have a bit of that snowflake syndrome where, you know, I look at the deck list that everyone else has and I'm like, you know, I want to do something different because I'm stubborn. And I have that snowflake syndrome, so I think for now I'm gonna run this as like a tentative deck list just to be like weird and different from everyone else because I'm not like other girls. But yeah, you know, I'll probably test this out and then I'll report back in some other time to tell you how good or bad these decisions are. But for now, that's gonna be it for this video. It is 30 minutes long. Holy carp. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.